morning.
Good morning,
Good
Mr.
morning,
Coleman.
Marissa. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm fine. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I'm trying to get you on speaker.
Oh, okay.
There you are. There you are.
Good morning.
Well, good morning. How are you today?
I'm doing quite well. How are you doing?
I'm Tommy Terrific.
That's good to hear. Okay. So, before we get started with the official interview, I just wanted to review some information and to remind you again that we may not answer every single question that is on the sheet, and there may be some questions that come up that cover multiple questions in its answer or just lead us in a different direction, and that's fine. I will have 3 introductory questions, and you have the option to include any other monikers. And thank you for helping me tell the story of the North End neighborhood, specifically about the black neighborhood in the 50s and 60s. I'm going to start by first asking you, what is your name?
My name is James H. The H is for Hayes Coleman. James H. Coleman.
And what is your birthday?
May 25, 1946.
Okay. So, when did you or your family, it could be your parents or grandparents, first move to the North End, and how long did you stay?
I was approximately 8 years old. I was in the 3rd grade, and I remained on the North End until I got married September 16, 1967, when I moved to an apartment with my wife on Chicago Boulevard.
Okay. And were there multiple places where your family lived on the North End, or did they move in when you were 8 and stay in that same place until you were married?
No, when we first got there, we lived in a, I guess what you would call a flat on the corner of Cardoni and I believe it was between Holbrook and Owen. And then we later moved from that location to, let me just think, to Hawthorne in Holland Park. And then we moved back to, at another point we lived on, right across from the Jam Handy organization on Grand Boulevard, and I believe that was also Cardoni. And then finally we and then after some time in the Hawthorne place, we moved to an apartment on Rosedale and Cameron. And I lived there until my mom bought her first home, and I was about 14 or 15, and she bought that home at 317 Leicester between John R. and Brush. Excuse me. Cut it. Stop. Buster, stop. Buster, stop. Okay, I'm back.
Okay, thank you.
Between on 317 Leicester between John R. and Brush. And I lived in that home until my marriage and until I went into the service. And my mother, I remember this. This was one of those contracts where the owner of the house owned a home. It was a land lease where, as long as you paid for it, you made your monthly payments, you were able to continue to live there and buy down the price of the house, and my mother eventually bought the house. And at the time of her death, I saw that she had a box with every single note in it that she had paid to this owner, and a copy of the deed when it was all hers.
That's a wonderful achievement.
That was our first home. That was the first home. I had moved around so much that I swore I would never have my kids do that. And that was when we moved to, as I told you earlier, when I got married, we moved to an apartment in Chicago Boulevard. And that was, and then 1 year after that, I bought my first home, which was again on the west side. But that's another story for another day.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Where did you move from when your family came to Detroit?
My mother was born in Uniontown, Alabama, which is Marion County, and she had lived there, and I believe she came to Detroit when she was about 33, and she and my aunt moved from Alabama to Detroit, as I guess there was a migration from the south to the north, and Detroit was then, Motor City and thriving and that kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. So I think it was about in the 30s when my mother was age 30, and my mother was born in 1913, and she's always telling me that because that was the year the Titanic sank. So that's how I remember that. But she was in her 30s when she moved to Detroit, and then she had me in 1946 with my dad, and we lived in Detroit. At one point, I remember living off of Grand Boulevard, and I can't remember the name of the street, but I do remember that my first few years was in that area there.
Okay, thank you.
But can I go on?
Yes.
But my dad had always lived. My dad was kind of as typical of men and that are. My dad had more than one family. His first wife left him to go with his best friend, and he was very, hurt and disturbed by that. Mm-hmm. But he had 4 girls in that first marriage, and then later on, he met my half brother and sister's mother, and had children by her, and at the same time, somehow or another, he met my mother and had and got her pregnant with me, and so my sister, my older sister, whose birthday is February 24th, and mine is May 24th. We're both of the same age, but of different mothers and fathers, and the same father. And he had always lived there. He owned what today would be called a convenience store, but it was a little store in a corner of, I believe that street was Holbrook and Cardone. And he sold canned goods and, candy, hard candy. Hard candy used to be in a big jar, and you could reach in and pull it out, and dry goods and that kind of a thing. And he also, my dad also worked at Bourne Aluminum, and then in the evenings and the night times he would do what he would call junk, collect cardboard. He had a Chevrolet truck with a lettuce, a fence bed around it. If you can picture this, a fence that you could pull off, and you could take the cardboard and stuff out of it. So he collected that and sold the cardboard. Today we call that recycling. Mm-hmm. But I remember him saying, if you know how to junk, you'll never be without money. And that, of course, modern recycling took over and put all those people out of work, so to speak. But he took care of the three families, and as a result of that, he moved me from the west side over to the north end, where I would be near him, and that's where the first house I told you that we lived in, on a corner of, and I said Holbrook, but I think it was Owen, and there were three streets there. There's Holbrook, there's Owen, and there's another one, and I get them. I don't remember all of them, but I was on the corner of Cardone and the street after Holbrook. There was a big main street there, and then the next main street over was Owen, and so whatever that street was, that's where we lived on the corner, and that's where my dad first brought me, and then I started to go to St. George Elementary, and that was about the third grade.
Okay. Was St. George the only school you went to on the North End?
St. George was the only grade school I went to on the North End. That's true, yes.
And did you attend Northern High School or a different high school?
No, I went to St. Elizabeth High on the east side on Kniff and Joseph Campo. Or maybe that's Canfield and Joseph Campo, one of the two. I don't know. But it's one of those two names.
Okay. And did you walk to school or did you catch the bus to high school?
I caught the bus to high school, but I walked to grade school. Even when I was living in Holland Park, I walked to grade school from my home to St. George, which is on the corner of Westminster and Cardone.
Okay. And when you were going to high school, what bus were you taking to get to school?
Oh my gosh, I don't remember. I just remember that it was not a school bus; it was public transportation. Mm-hmm. And we caught that bus, and we had to change the fare once. Get off one bus and get on another bus.
Okay, thank you. I'm asking because buses, I'm hoping to capture the transients that a lot of Black families experienced before they got settled, but also just how people move through the neighborhood, because there's so many instances of, families coming up to Detroit and staying in various housing arrangements with folks before they can purchase their own home or move to another part of the city. And I'm using bus lines to kind of illustrate the story in the different places and connections on the map where people lived and built families and stories and connections. So it's okay if you can't remember the bus line, because I'm
Well, I can tell you this. So part of my high school life, I lived on a corner of Rosedale and Cameron, and it was a really long home. So my best friend Ray Hill and his family lived in the front part of their house, and then there was an apartment, like a second house attached to it, but it was all one unit. And then behind our house was the garage, so there was no drive-in garage. You had to drive your car into the garage and then walk outside to come to it. And my home, our apartment, separated the garage from where they lived. And so I used to, and so Cameron was, I believe, 3 blocks from Oakland, and I used to have to walk up to Oakland and catch the bus. And Ray and I both, because we were both going to St. Elizabeth at that time, and we would catch the bus and go to Oakland, take it down to Warren, and then we would catch the Warren bus, which was going east, and take it over to Joseph Campo, and get off there and walk maybe 2 or 3 blocks down to St. Elizabeth, which was on, I think, Kniff or Canfield. I don't remember those streets, but it was either Canfield or Kniff, whatever is over on the east side there.
Oh, it was probably Canfield then, because Kniff is like right off of, you could walk to Kniff.
Yeah, Kniff is right off of, right in Holland Park area, isn't it?
Yes, but
Okay.
Canfield is near Warren and Wayne State and things, so that makes sense. And this is also helpful.
Because your grandmother lived on the corner of Kniff and Oakland, right?
Trowbridge and Oakland, but we were cat a corner.
Okay. Yeah, so it was Canfield, and we would catch the bus, and I'm not sure if it was Warren or Canfield, but we would catch the Oakland bus all the way down to that, and then take that bus over and get off at Joseph Campo and walk, to the school.
Okay, thank you.
Interesting enough, in my senior year, I bought my first car, which was a 1950 Ford. It was what we call three on the tree, 3-speed transmission. It was mustard yellow on the bottom with white. It was an ugly car, but it cost me, I think, $50, and it had a hole on the floor on the passenger side. But it was my car, and that was my senior year, and I drove that car to high school my senior year, and drove it a couple years until after I got my first job and bought my first new car.
Did you have a job when you were in high school?
I was a paper route. I had a paper route from the time I was 10 years old, and then later on, I went to work at A&P initially as a bagger, and then as a produce supplier and replacer.
And where was that A&P?
On Owen and just north of Woodward, right around Owen and Woodward.
Okay.
In fact, if we go there now, I think the store is called King's.
Oh, King Cole?
I'm sorry, what? Yeah, King Cole. That was the old A&P.
Oh, I never knew that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Was that, when you were younger, was that the grocery store your parents preferred, or did they shop in other places?
To my knowledge, that was a grocery store that my mom preferred. My dad, didn't live with me, and so I'm sure he shopped someplace else.
Okay. What were some of your favorite memories or events that used to happen in the neighborhood?
Well, one of the ones I remember, there are a couple ones, but one I remember is, and I have a picture of me as a little boy. They used to bring ponies around, and for photo ops and photo opportunities, and so there's a picture of me, which I still have to this day, where I was dressed up as a little cowboy. I was sitting on the back of this pony, and I had this picture taken of me. And, I don't know how old I was, but I was, I was 7, 8, 9, something like that, that kind of age. And so I have that picture to this day. And then the other thing I remember is the milkman used to come and deliver milk, and it was Borden's milk, and it was in brown bottles, and he would come and deliver the milk directly to our door, put it on your doorstep and everything, and then one of my favorite that I recall is Ray and I we went into the attic of his house, Ray and I, on Rosedale.
Mm-hmm.
So we went into his attic, and out. We had BB guns, and out of the window, the ice cream man used to ride by, in a little ice cream, selling ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
And we would take the BB gun and shoot him in the butt, and he would turn around. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. He would turn around looking, trying to figure out where it came from, what was hitting him. We used to do that all the time. That was great fun. One of my saddest memories is that my dad bought me a 3-speed racer. It was a Schwinn racer. It was dark red, and and he spent quite a bit of money for that. It was, and I was the only one that had one, and I was riding around, of course, and I went to Ray's house, and I parked it on the front porch and chained it up and everything. And when we came out of the front of the house, the wheels were gone, and we were never able to afford to replace the tires again, and so that frame sat in my basement for the longest. And of course, later on as an adult, I didn't need that. And then because we could no longer afford that, so I got it. My dad bought me a little tank Schwinn, which was much smaller, so I had to have the seat raised real high, and I would ride that bike. And at one point, I broke the paddle off, and so I was riding the bike with one pedal, and I was faster than anybody else with just that one pedal. But they never stole that. They never wanted that one.
Hey, as long as you got to keep it, I'm glad.
Yes.
Were there any other things you would do for fun or community places you could visit for activities when you were a kid in the North End?
Yeah. On the corner of Leicester and Woodward was, I guess I would term it a restaurant, was a place called Leslie's Shrimp. I believe it was Leslie's Shrimp Hut or Leslie's, let's just call it Leslie's Shrimp Restaurant. And you could go in there and you could buy a fried shrimp anywhere from 1/8 of a pound to a pound. And a pound was about $8, and you can get 2 pounds. But we would frequently buy fried shrimp from her, and just like you'd eat potato chips or something like that, eat that. And then when I became old enough legally, on the corner of Goodwin and what was a tavern called the In Crowd, and so I would go in there, and both even after I got married and came back, we would go in there, and I would have drinks with friends and so forth. And that was a pretty happening place. And then on the corner of Rosedale and Oakland, my favorite place, and to this day when I would go back, he's no longer there, but for many, many years when I go back to Detroit, I would go to Red's Shoe Shine Parlor. And Red's is where I first got introduced to jazz, because he always had jazz going, and his shoe shine was the jazz. And I learned what a spit shine was all about, and so forth and so on. So when I went into the Marine Corps, I knew how to spit shine without them even having to tell me. Mm-hmm. But Red's was the best. It was just a great vibe. It was kind of like you go to a barber shop. Only thing, it was a shoe shine. There was always a conversation. There was always what was going on in the neighborhood, what's happening, and you could hear the shoe shine cloth popping in time with the music as the jazz was playing in the background. And Red later moved his shop from Rosedale and Oakland to Leicester, the end of Leicester and Oakland, and he was there, and then he later passed, and someone, they kept his shop going, and now I believe it's closed. There was a barber shop right next to it, and I think they're both gone now.
Wow, I've walked past so many of these places, and there's a lot of revitalization happening. So people purchasing buildings and restoring or renovating, and it's just beautiful to learn about what this looked like and hearing these stories about these places when they were lived in. And I'm glad you mentioned music, because that's the next question. Did you have any favorite songs or albums you were introduced to, jazz or otherwise, around that time?
A lot of Oscar Peterson Trio, the Three Sounds, Motown was just kind of starting, but it wasn't big. Mm-hmm. Speaking of Motown, there was a place called the Local 334 on Woodward and Grand Boulevard. And Diana Ross, before she became Diana Ross and Supremes, they were called the Spinettes or something like that. Mm-hmm. You can look up what their real name. I think it was called the Spinettes or something. But anyway, long story short, I was there at the Local 334, and she was singing, and I danced with her. I hit on her and tried to hit on her for a girlfriend, and it never happened. But I did make the pass. I had the courage. I made the pass, and I got a few dances with her in between songs.
Okay.
There was also, I'm just thinking a couple of things. I want to go back to the previous time. Next to Reds, when he moved to Oakland and Leicester, was a barber shop. I used to go there to get my hair cut. It was a crazy lady. I can't think of her name, but she was a crazy lady, but she cut hair really, really good. And you would go in, you never knew what to expect, whether she was going to tell a fortune or it was totally unexpected. You went there for the unexpected. I remember that. And that barbershop was right next to Red's at the time. Speaking of music, going back to music, Mike and Tina Turner had a record shop on the corner of Owen and Oakland. And I remember going there and buying 45s and some 33s and so forth. And just up the street from that was Reverend Franklin's church, Aretha Franklin's dad's church, there. And so that's one thing. And then around the corner on Oakland was a place that we used to go, Mr. Oh God, what was his name? It was a club that you would go to, and you would have entertainment coming in that would go there. Let me just see if I can think and remember the name of that place. But it was it'll come to me. Pardon the age. It'll come to me, and I'll tell you as it comes to me.
That's fine.
It was Mr.
Not Mr. Jerry.
I'm sorry, what, ma'am?
Not Mr. Jerry. It was a different Mr.
No. This was a club. I believe your grandma even sang there. This was on the corner of, not off the corner. It was right off the corner of, between Owen and Holbrook on Oakland, or right off the corner of Oakland and Holbrook, and it was Mr. somebody's. It'll come to me, and I'll Phelps. It was
Phelps Lounge.
It was Phelps Lounge. It wasn't Mr. It was Phelps Lounge. That's what it was, Phelps.
Mm-hmm.
And so you know where I'm talking about.
Yes.
And we used to go there for entertainment. I saw Sonny Rollins and the great drummers of all time. Just a lot of good jazz music there. Sonny, of course, was a trumpeter. Who's the deep voice singer? BB. I can't remember all the names, but during that time frame, he was there.
In the 60s or the 70s?
In the 60s and 70s. No, 60s. I was a kid, so it had to be in the 70s.
Barry White.
Pardon, ma'am?
Barry White.
No, Barry White was never there. This was Barry White came well after that. This was he was some other. His middle name was Blues. Bobby Blues Bland.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Bobby Blues Bland. He sang there. We had the lady Diana. I can't remember her name. And Brooks Robinson. Brooks. She and them, they were both singing around the same time. His first name was Brooks. I'd have to look that up for you. But they appeared there. I saw them there too.
Okay. Wow. Thank you for sharing that with me.
Yeah, I'm sorry I can't remember the last names. It's in there.
It's okay.
Diana Washington, that's her name.
Yeah, I would have ended up saying Dinah.
Yeah, it's Diana Washington, and along with her was at the same time first name was Brooks, and I can't remember his last name. I want to say Robinson, but Robinson was a baseball player. Mm-hmm. It was Brooks something else, and he had a real deep baritone. And of course, you know how Diana's voice was. But they sang there, and we saw them as well.
Okay. When you were going out as a young adult, as a teen, as a kid, did you have like a favorite article of clothing or ensemble that you wore, or maybe even that you shared with your best friend Ray?
No, we always in grade school, always wore dark blue pants, light blue shirt, and a dark blue tie. And at St. Elizabeth, that was pretty much similar attire. So I always dressed very formally casual, if I may say.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't wear a tie all the time. Well, yeah, I did. Most of the time I wore a tie when I was out. Yeah, I did. I wore a tie, and I pretty much had a suit on. Occasionally a sport coat, but I was always dressed. I was never sloppy. I was not a jeans guy. I don't think I didn't buy my first pair of jeans until I was well as an adult.
Okay. But did you have like a favorite suit or a favorite tie? Or a shop you really wanted to go to one day when you had enough money to get a suit or tie?
Well, yeah, I went to, I had a shark skin suit. Do you know what shark skin is?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So it's a shiny kind of material.
Yeah.
And it was a medium blue, a little bit darker than a banker's blue. And I had a medium red tie that I would wear with that, and an off-white shirt or a light blue shirt that I would wear with that. I would occasionally wear a hat. The hat was tilted sideways on my head, not side, not like on the side of my head, but like on my head, but just a little bit of a tilt, to make it kind of a little attitude. And the brim was broken in the front, so it bent down, and that was me. That was me.
Oh, that sounds so sharp.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. We only have a few questions left because we've covered a lot of ground, and I really appreciate you sharing that with me. Because you went to high school outside of the neighborhood, did you have a lot of friends, like from school or other parts of the city, that would come to visit the North End? Or family members from out of town who would come and visit?
The answer is no to both. In high school, Ray, myself, a fellow by the name of James McIntosh, and John Hedden, we were four, or Ray minus, we were 5 black kids in a white school, and class of 33, and they didn't come over to the North End. And as soon as we got out of school, we got on the bus and went back home to our neighborhood, so to speak. So no, and as far as family was concerned, my family, I had my aunt and my cousins that came up with my mother. My mother and my aunt moved to Detroit, and that was our family. We all spent time together, and I had friends in the neighborhood, but Ray and I were the closest. My half brother and sister and I were not very close until we became adults. There was obviously some, I would say, not envy, but nasty words being said about us by her parents, their parents, and you can understand that having another child the same age as a girl, so you can appreciate. My mother didn't know he was married or had any other. Otherwise, she probably, being the way my mother is, she would have never, got involved with him. Mm-hmm. My dad, they used to call Sugar. He was a sweet talker. He had a tongue that was honey. he could just about get anything that he wanted. But no, not a lot of friends. Just in the neighborhood. Not a lot of family visiting. Only my Uncle Shepard from Dayton, Ohio. He came every summer, and he would take me back to Dayton with him, and that's how I learned to want to be an entrepreneur and how to want to, I never wanted to rent. I always wanted to own a home like him, and when I went back to look up, it's a little cottage, but to me at that time, it was the biggest house in the world. And that's part of why he set the example of the man that I wanted to be, more so than my dad.
Okay.
So that was the only visitor that would come from out of town. My uncle would come, and he would check on my mother and my aunt, and spend a couple of weeks with us, and then he would take me back to Dayton, and I would spend the summer with him in Dayton, Ohio, and then come back in time for school.
Wow. I'm learning so much about you, Mr. Coleman. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. And if I can tell you a little bit about Dayton, my uncle owned his own trucking business, mm-hmm. And he was also a landscaper. And there is a TV transport station in Dayton, Ohio called WHIO. And to this day, it still exists. And my Uncle Shepard was responsible for cutting the grass all the way around that. I guess, I don't know how many acres, 5 acres, 6 acres, maybe a little bigger. But all I remember is that as soon as we finished cutting one side, it was always constant cutting, because as soon as you got all the way around, you had to keep cutting. and I learned how to use a lawnmower, a tractor mower, and cut the grass and everything. And every year we would paint the tower. My uncle would paint the tower, and as soon as you got one side, it would take 4 years to paint the tower because you're painting up one side, then you go around, and by the time you finish on the fourth year, it's ready to go to the other side. I was cutting the grass, and he was painting the tower. Then he owning several trucks, and again we go back to the junking. He had 3 tractor trailers, and he had 2 drivers beside himself, and he had contracts with Kresge and in the shopping centers, and we would while I was younger, I would ride with him, and we would go out at about 11 o'clock and go to these shopping centers and clean out the cardboard and stack them in to the tractor trailer. And then he had another driver who was driving, I forgot to mention the garbage truck or the trash truck, who would come in and clean out the trash for these different stores, the 5 and 10s, and you name them down there. And then later on, when I became able to drive, I learned to drive, by the way, with my uncle around his lot, driving a 3-speed. That's how I got my Ford, learning to drive a 3-speed Chevy coupe, driving it around the lot, shifting it back and forth and so forth. And later on, after I got my license, I got my own crew, and I would take them out to do the same thing that I just described to you, and then I would come back and sleep for about. I get in about 2 o'clock, and I get up around 6 and go to school. I was going to college then at which is now today is Rice State University, but then it was the Miami U, the Ohio State University. That was in Beaver Creek, Ohio. And I would go there and attend classes, and I come back and do my homework and then sleep and get up at 11 and do the routine over again. And that was my work ethic. And, I appreciate him having taught me that. And between him and my dad, I really learned to be responsible, but mainly from my uncle.
Thank you for sharing that. And was that your dad's brother or your mom and your aunt's brother?
It was my mom and my aunt's brother.
Okay.
Shepard C. Sanders, Shepard Calvin Sanders.
Okay. Got about 3 questions left. This has been such a wonderful experience, and I'm really grateful for you sharing this story with me. And with that in mind, how would you want the north end of that time to be remembered? And then additionally, how would you want to be remembered?
Before I answer both of those, can I take you back to when we were talking about things that were going on in the neighborhood? I forgot one area. On Westminster, there was a market, and that market had fresh wild meat in it, like rabbit and deer and raccoon.
Mm-hmm.
And after I got married, my father-in-law was quite an old boy from the farm, Albert Mims, and he loved coon, cooking it. And we would go over to Westminster Market and buy the coons, and we would cook them. And he showed me how to clean it. They had 16 glands. He'd show me how to clean the glands off of them, so it wouldn't destroy the meat. And then we would put it in a pot and cook it with some wine sauce, and then make a raccoon stew, and with some of the legs and the meat on it. It was just delicious. But I remember that just as I'm sitting here talking to you, and that was part. And then that store is no longer there, but we would sometimes we'd get rabbit, we'd do that. But I never did this with my mom or with my dad. They were, my mom was a housekeeper for St. George, and that helped to pay for my tuition at St. George. My tuition was $8 back then. I saw my report cards and grade school report cards. My mother started out cooking for the school, and then later on transitioned to be the housekeeper for the rectory. And that was a lot of the ways that I ate and had some decent food and learned about steaks and so forth, because the priest always ate well. And so I forgot about that, and I wanted to share that with you as well.
And I appreciate you sharing that. And even just with this interview, this doesn't have to be the last thing you share. So it's okay if you didn't remember something. Or even if you just think of something that we didn't cover that you wanted to share as well. Because it's I designed this project to be an ongoing living thing that people can interact with and contribute to and get to share an experience. So I do want, if you have things you want to share now, please do. But also know if you remember something after this call, after the fact, you can still share it with me. That's still available, and the project is built to accommodate that.
Okay. And to answer your two questions, the first one was, what do I want people to remember about the North End?
Yes.
It was a wonderful place to grow up and live. There was not crime there. I mean, it was just a good neighborhood. And it was a good place until 1968 when, Martin Luther King was assassinated, and we had the riots. And up until that point, it was just a wonderful area to live in. And then, of course, everything went to pot after that, and the whole, almost the entire the city of Detroit was decimated after that. But up to that point, the North End was wonderful. It was people owned their own homes. They were blue-class working people. They had respect for each other. Like any place else, there was minor crime, but there was nothing major. There were none of the wanton killings and that kind of a thing. A kid could walk to school and not be molested. We would be able to do a lot of things, play in the streets and just be children the way children should be, and enjoy life, and even as young adults, enjoy each other's company. So that was the way I would want the North End remembered for me. I remember, the Temptations and those groups living down the street from us, but I never knew them. I only found this out afterwards that they were great or anything like that. It was just, we were just regular people, nobody famous. And as for myself, I am what I am today because of the North End and because of people that took an interest in me. My uncle, my dad, perhaps even Mr. and Mrs. Hill, because, we didn't have any money. My mother was a working lady. And all I've tried to do, because I've had a very, very successful life, relatively speaking, from where I came from. And all I've tried to do in my adult life is to pay it back by helping some children want more. And the whole key is to want more, because so many people of my friends still live in the same area that they grew up in, and they never got a chance to see the world. And I've had a chance to do that. And so in my mentoring that I've done, and in my activities with the Newark YMCA and with the Rotary, I've always tried to give back and give service to others above myself. And, that's what I would hope, that I've made a little bit of a difference in the life of just one person.
Thank you for that, Mr. Coleman, and thank you for participating in my project and conducting this interview with me.